Content warning. The following show contains discussions of fictitious violence, smoking, coffee drinking, and a few personality traits will be discussed that might make some people feel like they're being attacked. But I promise you, you're not being attacked. If anything, you're being seen. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, that was a way to do it, wasn't it? Well, yeah, we had to say something, right? Yeah, always got to say something. Hey everybody, what is the word? How you doing out there? What is going on today? This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. And welcome to the Dark Side of the Room, the show where we discuss games, play, friendship. Yeah, friendship, because the real friends, or the real power was the friends they made all along. And I'm glad that everybody is here. Thank you for showing up today. Oh man, it looks like I've got to like upgrade or restart like my internet browser or something like that, because stuff is going stupid. And I mean stupid. But thank you guys for joining me today, and we are going to take some time in the game gallery today, because I've decided that since it is Friday, thank God that it's Friday, and I cannot spend any time with the young Miss Connie Swales, that we are going to talk about game stuff. And I'm specifically mentioning certain game mechanics, and as you guys can tell by the title of today's episode, we are dealing with dice discouragement. So that is going to be a thing, but I will not be alone out here today. I've actually got a guest or two coming in, but you know, honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on. Wait a second. Oh, this will not do. This is unacceptable. Alright, guys, I will be right back because my coffee cup is not in here with me, and that is not a very cool thing. In the meantime, though, if you guys want to get a hold of me or throw in your own experiences, I'm sure Neon will put up the Discord really quickly, and you can reach out to me at Gmail, Twitter, and Instagram, all at backinthedeck@gmail.com. There's also TikTok, Facebook, and of course, if you guys are part of that wretched hive of scum and villainy, you can hit us up on Facebook in Deckers on the Book. I'm going to put that back up there real quick while I go get my coffee cup from the workshop. I will be right back. All right, that was easy. All right. So, thank you guys for tuning in and holding on for just a second. Oh, man. Some people got to go walk their dogs. I, on the other hand, have got to go get my coffee cup. And thank you so much, Neon, for throwing up the Discord invitation. Oh, my God. You know, one of these days I may have to pay you to be one of the producers. That's if ever I can cover my mortgage. But we have a subject that I find fun today, all right? We're going to be going over a few very interesting aspects to games and all of that stuff. And of course, if you find any... Oh, well, there you go. Well, you know what? You go get that training and then go pass it out to others because, you know, I know you are one of our prime deckers. And you know how that behavior goes over and all that jazz. So you go on out there and be the teacher's pet and all that stuff. But, oh yeah, and if you guys get any value out of what we do here, then I can bat my eyelashes at you cutely and ask for donations in the link provided right here in the chat. Look at that. And I'll put that on YouTube as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I have to bust 1,000 subscribers in order to do the stuff that most people already do on YouTube. Like, you know, super chats, more live stuff. And if I'm even going to be considered for a partnership. Because I still hold on to the magical thinking that positive content on the internet is still watched by people. So that's where we go on that. So, when it comes to all of that, thank you guys so much for your participation and all of that jazz. At the moment, I am also waiting for my guests to show up today. It is a Friday, isn't it? It really is a Friday. So, let's talk. While I wait for my coffee to brew, I'm a little sluggish. Last week I suffered, I wouldn't say a grievous, but a serious head injury. So if I'm a little bit out of it or a little bit loopy, don't worry about it. I might just have a concussion. But as you guys know, I do a lot of research just on games in general. And I like to play games, I like to do tutorials. I like to do a lot of stuff. I love games and toys and all of that jazz. But growing up poor, I always had to make my own toys. And yeah, so, this is why I'm into the stuff that we do. We make our own stories. We play games that don't require a lot of moving pieces and don't make a lot of beeps. And of course, playing those games do require a few things. And one of the things I've definitely noticed online, specifically on YouTube and Instagram and Discord, is most of the conversations tend to skew toward dice mechanics for competitive play. Now, as you guys know, because I've gone over them and I was going to go over a little bit, but I'm going to leave that to you guys to see if y'all actually want to talk about that subject. I was going to go over the 3.0 rules for one-page rules with what's new, what isn't new, that kind of thing. And that would be kind of cool. And so when it comes to that kind of thing, yeah, look at my announcement there. I've seen so many videos from engineers and mathematicians that go over the dice bell curve and all of that other stuff. And I have a lot of friends. One friend in particular, shout out to you, Mad Wookie, who, well, how can I put it? So I've played hundreds of games, thousands of times, all right? And one of the things that I know lead to feel bad moments more than anything else is when it seems like the dice are not on your side, okay? Now, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I learned from power gamers. I inadvertently studied under power gamers for a while. I don't like the mindset, but the statistical analysis is beautiful. And when I say that, I don't just mean min-maxers, okay? And what do I mean by that? Well, there are players in any game who try and put together the characters or do the gameplay that doesn't reduce their chance of loss, but is intended on eliminating their chance of defeat. I remember when I was working at a game store, my supervisor, one of the best Magic the Gathering players in the world at the time, was telling me that the point was not to win, but it was to crush your opponent. And my soul is way too gentle for that. I've got way too big of a spirit. But one of the ways that he did that was kind of statistical analysis, although he didn't have the words to tell me at the time. All right. Now, I have heard for years, okay, a lot of my friends go, I don't know, I want to play these games and all that stuff, but the dice hate me. And they get so caught up in their dice rolls that the rest of the game falls to the wayside. Now, earlier this week, we talked about making the game fun for everyone involved playing. All right. And I will tell you, when you are talking or playing with someone who's tilted about their dice rolls, that can get kind of difficult. And I promised you guys I was going to address that. There we go. For the record, I'm waiting for ibuprofen to kick in because I've got a scorching headache. So, what are we doing with dice? Well, most of the time we roll dice. But understanding how dice works can really help in understanding how games that use them are designed. All right? That may seem a little odd. Hang on. That may seem a little odd, but just follow me for a few. All right. We've got the popular games, such as Dungeons and Dragons, um, Warhammer 40K, and insert any other dice thing that's there. Now, I'm going to give you guys the simple mathematics. All right, just the simple math. Um, because this is the core of most game design, okay? Once folks have decided upon, I suppose you can say, which, and this is like a real thing, which of the polyhedral dice they are going to be using for the game, that is when the mechanics are written and put up, all right? Example. When you look at Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, anything that uses the D20 system, all right, it's easy to calculate how they put everything together and why. All right. Now, what do I mean? Well, number one, average essentially comes down to closest to the middle on a number line. All right. So if you've got 1 through 10, the average is about 5 point something. So 5, give or take. All right. In a D6 system, it is, believe it or not, 4. All right. That's the average. All right. That is what turns everything from regular to 50-50. And how do I mean that? Well, let's take, the TikTok didn't go out. Oh, well, let's take a look at, simple things. Yeah. 3.54 D6. Exactly. Which, of course, rounds up to a 4 or down to a 1 or down to a 3 because, there is no 0.5 on a dice that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. But the average itself being 4 means you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. You've got 6 numbers. There is no 0. So when the target number is 4, that means you've pretty much got a 50-50 shot. This is why in, say, Warhammer 40K, when the strength of your weapon matches the toughness of the target, it's a 4. Okay? And then you get different modifiers depending on how far away you are from what that is. You know, it's a thing. But when a lot of people are saying, oh, man, I can't do this thing because the dice gods hate me, the real question is, what numbers are you shooting for? Okay. And that right there, okay, that question right there is a very, very, very important question. You know, what numbers are you actually shooting for? Example. When, hang on. Yeah, that's, nope, that's not the one. I have to reopen my windows here. When, for example, you are playing a D6 game and cool things happen when you roll 5 or 6, all right? That means you've got a 1/3 chance of hitting it. Seriously, because there are 2 numbers that are successful, 5 and 6, and that's divided by 3. So, you know, or divided by, 6. So 2 out of 6 equals 1 out of 3. So you have a 1/3 chance of hitting it. Are you with me so far? Okay, good. But this is the deal. All right. There is an emotional component to a lot of this stuff. And what is that emotional component, one might ask? Well, whenever we play dice games, okay, I don't care if it's craps, Dungeons and Dragons, or should I say, I don't care if it's a standard dice game like Craps, a role playing game, or a miniatures game. Mm. The dice are going to roll. The more sides the dice come to, the more variations that you're going to hit, right? So if you have a D20 game like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, that means quite simply and quite clearly that at the end of the day, the average that you're going to do on a D20 is 10.5. Okay, 10.5 because there's no zero. There's no zero on the dice, so that's what you'll be doing. That's where you'll be at. Okay, so how do we navigate this? Well, it's very simple. Average means the most statistically viable that it will come up, but really what it really comes down functionally is how close to 50-50 are you going to be rolling most of the time? This is where the dice mechanics come in, all right? This is why in the D20 systems like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, you know what? Let's go to the workshop on this. Hang on. Games. There we are. So, when you're dealing with dice, when you're dealing with a game that's like Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, any other D20 game, your bonuses are 0 when you're at 10. 10 and 11. Those, again, the average being 10.5. So 10 or 11, your bonuses are 0. Okay? Hey, Gaming Fix. So, when you're looking at those dice, most of the game mechanics are balanced within getting that 0 bonus, that middle part. Now, of course, there are the dice bell curve and the statistical stuff and all that you can study. I'm not going into that because I have a headache. However, if 10 is the average, all right, then let's take Dungeons and Dragons or the D20 system. All of your bonuses give you a certain percentage of a better chance to do that. So if, let's say you're making a wisdom check to make sure that you can keep up your concentration spells. In Dungeons and Dragons, you roll a D20 and you're aiming for 10. Now, if you've got a wisdom save proficiency, then you add your proficiency bonus, which sometimes can be as high as a 5. That means on a 20-sided die, you need to roll for all of your bonuses to equal 10. Equal 10. So if you've got a proficiency bonus of 5 because you're an epic level character, you need to roll 5 or higher. 5 or higher. 5 or higher. On a it does. This is why there's only 1 or 2 3d6 based games. That means you have an 80% chance of doing it. Okay, 80%. Wow, that is big. I can tell you how I got to those numbers, but that's a little later in the show. Now, what is going to happen, and this is really important, guys, is that your dice rolling will always average out to the middle. Okay, always average out to the middle. This is why in craps, 7 is a dangerous number, because it is the sum total of the two most average numbers rolled on a 6-sided die. All right, a 4 and a 3. Those are going to come up. Yeah, that's a long discussion, and I would rather you be a co-host on the show to talk about that for real. So When you believe that the dice gods are not in your favor, there are a couple of things that you can do to mitigate that. Now, what I'm talking about skirts dangerously close to the line of min-maxing, okay? However, most of this comes down to min-maxing in thought and behavior and not on the piece of paper, okay? I have an affinity for swarm armies, all right? I love the horde, specifically because, well, I grew up poor. Oh, here he goes again, playing the poor black man card. He should put that back in the deck. No, just hold up, okay? Growing up poor meant that I never had enough money or enough resources at one time for a specific thing. Using Warhammer 40k language, I never had the resources to point and delete. So when I was growing up, we had something called layaway, okay? It wasn't credit like a credit card, but you would literally make payments on the thing that you wanted to buy. So let's say you wanted some shoes, you would go in there, put down $20, and then go in the next week and put down $20. And if the shoes costed, say, $100 or $150, then 5 to 14 weeks later, boom, you got your shoes. All right. So when I was young and I didn't have enough resources, I had to beg for money, borrow for money. Sometimes I was even busking, because if my rent was $800 and I only had $200, I wasn't going to be borrowing $600 from someone. But if I could get 20 from 30 people, I'd be good. Okay. So I think within the swarms. All right. I.e., a whole bunch of little paper cuts. All right, just a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from here. I'm really bad with elite characters. All right. In the sense of, hey, this guy points, this guy deletes. I just have to roll this. I have to roll this number, and I do all of this damage. I don't know how to plan for that. So with that, when I run a swarm army, I've got 30, 40 different dudes that might hit on a 5 or a 6, but they're rolling 2 to 3 dice each. So if they're rolling 2, I'm rolling 60 dice. And of those 60 dice, statistically speaking, 2/3 of them, so 40 of those dice, are going to come up short. Okay, they are not going to give me what I need if I roll average. However, and this is a big one, 20 of them will. And I only need to hit this thing 11 times. Okay? So I just do the bucket of dice. And a lot of people around my neck of the woods love making fun of my gaming style. They're like, oh yeah, you're just playing Dice Hammer. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm playing. It is a legitimate way to win that is very hard to exploit. Okay, especially because when your grenade goes off, I lose 1/5 of my army. Ha ha ha. But when it comes down to that, understanding that the dice will always come down to 50-50, which is average. Can't hear you, dude. That is in and of itself a really interesting thing to lean on. Now, I have a lot of players in my circles that love playing elite armies or elite characters with the idea of point and delete, or one shot, one kill, or one swing and your enemy is done. But games are generally not designed that way. Specifically because if you do one attack and delete the thing that you're fighting, or you do one singular dice check and everything that you wanted comes to fruition, there's no challenge. So games, when they're designed, aim for the middle. They aim for mediocre. You'll win some, you lose some, but if you play long enough, if you had no bonuses, no tweaking, no special weapons, no magical abilities, no nothing, you would win 50% of the time. I'd like to introduce my co host for today's episode. You guys know him, you love him as not a Ruthless Wonder, but the Ruthless Wonder. In the middle of prepping for his virtual book tour for The Man Called Dragon, I bring to you guys a great writer, a great humanitarian, and my dear friend, years, the Ruthless Wonder. What is going on, man?
Oh, not too much. Just had a lot going on today, and yeah, just kind of went a little too fast earlier trying to get ready. So I apologize for my lateness
Oh, no,
this
no. You
afternoon.
see, I totally covered for you. They didn't know that you were late.
Hey, it's okay. I don't mind folks knowing certain things, certain things. It's always important to be honest with people about stuff.
Dude, illusion of professionalism. Don't come to me with that integrity crap. No, I'm
The
kidding.
more
I'm
the
kidding.
more integrity you have, the more professional you look because people realize that you will account for the things that you are failing at. So, yeah.
Hey, hey, hey. There will be no making sense on this channel today. I
I
have
mean,
a head
after all,
wound.
today I did call somebody to delete their Twitter account. So,
We'll talk about that Tuesday night down by the docks.
oh no,
Uh,
this is one that is actually kind of related to our discussion today. So it's kind of interesting.
oh, okay. Hit me with it.
So, you're talking about the sort of inherent nature of the dice and how they build to be sort of dice neutral, that you would win half, lose half. That's a great standpoint. Healthcare is supposed to be in this sort of the same thing that all things being considered, you should get what you came there for. And this person was a doctor saying that she thinks that healthcare workers should put when people are being rude in their charts so that other healthcare professionals can see that they're being rude and treat them accordingly. I'm sure you can imagine how that gets abused.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
between
Of
me, some
course,
other
I'm not going
disability
to lie.
advocates,
I'm only halfway in that direction because growing up at a major hospital, I can say it doesn't matter what they put in the charts. That always implies that the doctors and nurses read them.
well, that too. But it was interesting because it's like you're
Yeah.
supposed to really be neutral about how you talk about these things. You're supposed to really only include the stuff that is important. And what do you know between me telling folks to take a look at her information and possibly talk to her, my licensing board, as well as other disability advocates who are actual disability advocates doing the same. Suddenly, she's no longer on Twitter. Who knew?
Well, looks like somebody made their intimidation check.
That's what I
Um,
was about to go for. You knew where I was going. You knew what was happening.
but here's the thing, guys. When it comes to the dice gods loving you or hating you, what I see, um, when the feel bad moments or the tilting or this stuff comes down to, it tends to be when players are playing either a Hail Mary all or nothing gambit early in games, or they have this idea of what the game is, regardless of whatever game they're playing, that isn't. Okay. I want to bring up craps again for an example, because, like I said, we talked about how dice tend to skew toward the middle, and the average of a d6 is 3.5, so that's round down 3, round up 5, and 7 is or round up 4, and 7 being the average is adding up both of those numbers. Okay. Not to mention, a fun little dice trick is if you add the top die or the top number that's facing up to the one that's on the bottom, you'll always get one more than how many sides are on the dice. It's a fun little trick. Um,
Hold on, tell them that again, because I never thought about that, but
oh
now that
yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if yeah, fun trick. I learned this when I was maybe 12, and I made a little money showing people magic tricks by saying, okay, I give them a d6, like on a d6, whatever number is up and the one underneath, um the one that's on top and the one underneath, add them together and you'll get one more than the dice. So, if you're doing this on a d6, the top number and the bottom number will always be 7 because 1 will always be the opposite of 6, 5 will be the opposite of 2, you know, but they
Mm-hmm.
always add up to 7. So you can be like, yeah, so take that number and now multiply it by this, divided by that, subtract 3, add 4, add 15. Now take it down by 1.74 and this will be your number. And they're like, oh, how did you do that? And yes, thank you,
Math.
Xenothates. The top and bottom number divided by 2 will get you the mean result. Okay? But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean if you roll a die 6 times, it'll come up six six 3 times, 1 the other time. This is over the rolls. This is over 10,000 to 20,000 to 100,000 rolls. That's how statistics are calculated, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Um but understanding what the mean result is, you can tweak things back and forth because games tend to be designed with the mean being the baseline for what you're going against. This is why most of your checks in say D&D will be 10. I need a wisdom check of 10. Well, my wisdom modifier is +1. So now I need to make a total of 9. But I have proficiency at level 2, so that gives me another bop bop 1 2. So I need to roll a 7 or higher on my die to get the result that I want. All right? And when it comes to challenges, combats, and things like that, the GM or the game designer. Oh, whoa, let's see. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Carthulu. Baldur's Gate 3 is really teaching me better target numbers. Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, it
yes,
really is. Yeah.
yes. Because the designers of Baldur's Gate, who did this weird thing of releasing a AAA game with no DLC, very few patches, and a whole lot of function. Who'd have thought?
And no microtransactions.
Huh?
And no microtransactions.
Right? Actually studied game design and all that stuff. But yeah,
And thousands of interactions. Thousands of interactions that are different depending on everything down to character class and race and whether or not your character's from like Larry. Shout out to Larry, and they did an amazing job. I was so happy with my
they
playthroughs.
they truly did. They truly did. But yeah, so when you're taking a look and you're playing, and again, this is small math. All right, small. This is just a little bit of statistics, guys. When you're looking at stuff that you're trying to do in game, you will find, especially in competitive environments like War Machine, Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, okay? People will always talk about statistics and whether or not the thing they like is doing the thing that they want it to do the majority of the time, and then they'll weigh it against point cost and blah blah blah. Just stop, okay? While the people who actually go on to win world championships understand this very thing, this very simple statistical thing. The dice will always even out to rolling averages. Now, dice do tell stories. And a lot of my favorite games are when you get that 6 in a clutch moment, or when you roll that natural 20 at the right time. You know, especially when you're playing the paladin and you're using a sword of giant strength, or you're wearing the belt of giant strength, and you've got the vorpal sword, and you decide to smite, and you get that natural 20. Yeah, baby. You know,
It feels so
um,
good.
hmm?
Said it feels so good.
It does. It feels really, really good. However, I like to think about it like travel. Okay. Um, as awesome as it sounds, no one backflips to the bathroom regularly. Okay. Most of the time, we walk, and the fun and the game mechanics that are around most of these games, okay, come down to everything that you will do that is challenging will be 20 to 30% more difficult than the average. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, let's take a D20 game, for example, right? Every number on the die is a 5%. Because if you take 100, which is percent, and divide it by the sides of the dice, being 20, you end up with 5. That is your percentage. All right?
Right.
So when you look at challenge ratings, not the CR, but the actual target numbers that you're looking at, knowing that the average is 10 or 11, all right, is the average. Well, if this is a difficult thing, using that 20 to 30% rule, that means a serious challenge that you'll walk home going, yeah, I can't believe we did this, means that the target numbers that you're going to try and hit, if you're an average player with no bonuses, okay, are at 20%, 14. 14. That's going to be the target number. If it's a serious challenge, and this is where the CR thing is kind of calculated, but not gonna lie, the guys at Wizards of the Coast got a little lazy when it came to that. And by a little lazy, I mean they didn't go through every page of every tome and weigh it against every single bonus that a player can possibly stack on when it comes to inspiration, advantage, magical weapons, and min-maxing your stats. um, then it would be about 30 to 50% higher. Okay, meaning that the target numbers to hit and all that other stuff would be around 15 to 16 for difficult things. All right. But that's taking into account your proficiency bonuses, if you have any, your other bonuses, like that. That's where the stuff comes down. So when you're rolling dice and you think the dice gods hate me, is it that the dice gods hate you, or you're biting off more than you can chew? Okay. What are your thoughts on this, Ruthless?
Sometimes it's a bit of both. I mean, you and I both know sometimes you just run into incredibly bad rolls in an encounter that you, on average, would normally be fine with. And yeah, that's when the dice guys just happen to hate you that particular session. But yeah, sometimes people go after stuff they probably should not have gone after because it was way too ahead of what they should have been looking at for a challenge. It's like I know as a GM, not necessarily in D&D games as often, but in other systems, I have put together, backup encounters, sort of as a just in case they happen to do this instead of do that. With, like I said, I'm a very web sandbox approach to DMing, so I'm very cognizant that my players may go off on to some adventure I hadn't planned on. And so I kind of have a bunch ready for different things. And
Wait, your players don't stick to the script?
there is no script. That's the funny part that they don't realize, and you should definitely be ready for that for next Thursday. There is no actual script. There's just the thing that I know is the finish and what could possibly happen in the web between there. There are many ways to get to the end, but there is no guaranteed way to get there. I never approach in that fashion, but because of that, I have encounters in a sort of a web as well of difficulty levels and things of that nature. And sometimes they take the path towards the super difficult one, and it's like you have the ability to leave this until a certain point. You can go away, like you're here, but this is not the point of no return just because you're here. There's a point of no return, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to turn back. I'm going to let you realize this is probably too dangerous to be in and let you get out of there. So,
So, what you're saying is you don't use the GM's discretionary question very often.
I do. That's one of the first warnings: is are you sure you want to do that? Because it's important to say, hey, without telling you, you probably don't want to do this. You probably don't want to do this.
Yeah, it does come down to, are you sure? Yeah. Are you really sure?
Like,
You don't have to do that, but I'm not saying you can't.
I've told you in session 0, there are a web of decisions that you can make, and for most of them, there is an encounter built for that decision. That can include extremely difficult encounters if you've made extremely difficult choices. However, when you come on to one of those, you will also get a series of warnings before you get there. If you made a choice that's going to lead to one, I'll say, hey, are you sure you want to take this direction? Okay, if you're sure you want to take this direction, we keep going that direction. When we get to what is before that happening, almost in the same way video games like to give you a bunch of health potions and a save point. Like, I'm going to do things is like, are you sure you want to keep doing this? Because there are consequences for your choices. And it's because dice can be extremely randomly, disadvantageous for you as much as they can be extremely advantageous for you in a given
I
session.
like to say narrative. Dice can be extremely narrative.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to put it. And so because of that, I try to give those off ramps because we're here to have an entertaining time, whether that be fun entertaining or harrowing adventure entertaining. So I want you to have that possibility, but I also don't want you to feel like I forced you to make a choice, because we know that in a real situation, if you were really your character, you might not have made that choice knowing what was possible out there. And you can never have all the information as a player of a tabletop that uses dice as you would if you were the physical character in the real situation.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about percentages and what they mean. Now,
Hmm.
if you guys are computer gamers, as we all folks like to say, y'all be playing those beep boop beep bop games with all that stuff. Like, what is it? Those more pickers, then you guys know that when you get certain weapons and stuff, it'll give you a 5% increase. Oh, this will give you a 10% increase. It doesn't seem like much, okay? I mean, real talk, a magical item in D&D gives you a 5% increase because it gives you a +1, okay? But what do these numbers really mean? Now, I was talking to Cart Thulu one day, and he was down at the meeting down by the docks on Tuesday nights. And we were talking about how people that love being argumentative are saying, what, 10%? Please, it's only a 10% decrease in your pay cut. You should shut up and get back to work. And he's like, oh, 10%? Okay, so tell you what, don't go to work for a week or for a month and 2 weeks. Okay, if you can stay away from work for a month and a half, and still be as financially solvent as you normally could, I just heard a whole bunch of butts pucker all over the internet. It's like, what? Take a month and a half off work? Yeah, take a month and a half off work. If you can still make ends meet, then 10% is not that big of a hit for you. But for most people, that 10% can mean a lot. 10%, guys, is a +5 on your dice rolls in a D20 system. Okay? And that is on top of everything you already get, like your major bonus, your proficiency bonus. If you get something that gives a +5, that means you're rolling at a bare minimum of a +7 in a universe where 10 is the average. Just think about that. That means you fail on a 1, 2, or 3 out of 20. That means 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are all successes for you. You see how big that is? Matter of fact, I'm going to do something real fun. You ready for this?
Mm.
I am going to pull up a dice roller. Okay? Here we are, right here. All right? So seriously, um knowing that we're on a D20, that means 10, 11, 10 or 11, that's about the average. So, I need to make a saving throw. Say a saving throw versus poison. So I need a constitution thing. I need to roll 10. That's all. Just 10. Oh no. I rolled a 7. 7 is terrible. How can I roll a 7? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to add a modifier. I'm going to add my proficiency modifier at level 1, which is 2. And I'm going to add my constitution modifier because I'm a smart gamer and constitution is my secondary stat, which gives me another +2. So that's going to be 4. Hey, look, it's an 11. I made the save. Let's do that again. A +4 bonus. Roll. Look at that. A 19 if I roll a +4. So that right there is a lot. That is a lot to give when you're shooting for the medal. Okay? Now, I find a lot of players tend to get tilted, i.e., discouraged, stuck in feel bad moments, because, yeah, they'll need, say, in a D6 game like Warhammer or Grimdark Future, they succeed on anything but a 1, and they'll roll 4 ones in a row. And they'll be like, "Oh, the dice gods hate me." You know, have you seen this yourself, Ruthless?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's pretty common. Yep.
Yeah. And again, yeah, that does suck. However, one of the big ways out of this particular conundrum is, well, there are a couple of ways out of the dice gods hating you. Okay. Once you understand that over time, dice will always roll averagely. And that is way number 1. Stack your bonuses. Okay? This is the part that skirts dangerously close to min-maxing. Okay? Because in most games that you can design your own characters or get stuff, you can put so many things into a thing that you're really good at the cost of everything else on your sheet. Or you could be, well, it's not theft if it's archaeology. You can be an Indiana Jones type of character and try and get all of the magical items that you can get. You know, I want the belt of blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're playing Munchkin and you've got the roll of magical duct tape that allows you to tape everything together for the weapon that you shouldn't technically be able to lift, but for some reason, because of Liefeldian physics, you've got the gun with 180 barrels, but you have to wear the magic pouches of ammo, you know? Okay, for you comic geeks out there, that was funny. But, and the second way, figure out a way to keep rolling dice. We're talking re-rolls. We're talking, oh, hang on. Yeah, tune in. Yeah. Yeah, we're talking yeah. It's true. It's true. Something came up on my TikTok saying the British Museum needs your help to track down stolen objects. And people are like, they're in the display. Anyway. So, yeah. But the second way is to figure out a way to keep rolling dice. All right? This is one of the reasons that I don't allow diviners or time mages in my D&D games.
He says as he plays a time mage.
Huh?
He says as he plays a time mage.
I didn't say I wouldn't play them. I said I don't allow them in my games. And you see how I run these particular characters, and I'm conservative when it comes to using overpowered stuff. You know, I'm like, I'm not going to use this
he
all
got
the
the
time.
time police on all of us.
Huh?
You say as you got the time police on all of us.
Yeah, but, you know, those were some bad dice rolls. Because I was on the left side of that bell curve.
Oh.
you know. So yeah, and so one of the ways that we can get over the dice gods helping us, like I said, is to figure out ways to roll more. This is one of the reasons I like swarms.
Mm.
As you guys have seen when I play Grimdark Future or Warhammer 40K, I'm like, hey, this unit has 20 guys in it. 20 guys, and they have weapons that do A2. I get to roll 40 dice. And I'll roll those 40 dice. Yeah. If I only need 11 hits to take something out, my particular formula, is to try and roll as close to 4 times as many dice as I need successes.
If you're wondering why he doesn't get invited to many White Wolf based World of Darkness games, you now know why. Shows up with 10 pounds of D6s.
No, I don't show up to White Wolf games because I play mages and I'm very good with using the spheres. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because the LARP I was in for 12 years, it was a vampire only. But I'm like, can I play mage? But I promise I won't take correspondence. And, because
The
I love...
bargaining.
Huh?
He said, oh, the bargaining.
Well, yeah, I had to because I'm way too good with teleportation magic. It's the vampire swipes at you. Yeah, he's 6 inches short. I'm not really standing here. I'm like a phase beast. And when I get powerful enough, I will open up portals to Australia. And people are like, why? Why? Why do you want to open up a portal to Australia? Because you're a vampire and there's this thing called time zones. Yeah. So.
Oh,
yeah. And again, yeah, thank you, Carthulu. Yeah, it is broken. I actually came up with a trap called Noah Laybacher's. It was I called the road Noah Laybacher's Terminal Velocity Prison.
Oh, goodness. I can already imagine.
Yeah, it was a portal at your feet and a portal over that one that you would just fall through until you hit terminal velocity. Then, depending on your guilt or innocence, that would determine whether or not the portal on the ground stayed open. Again, broken. So, that's why I don't get invited to, to White Wolf games. Like, they put me in a ring against a werewolf, and the werewolf was like, I have all of this stuff in this martial prowess. I'm like, cool, I'm a life mage. Well, I will hit you with all this stuff. Ooh, ow, ow, oh, my old bones, because I'm playing a character based on Samuel L. Jackson from Black Snake Moan. It's like, oh my God, I can't hit you hard enough for your abilities not to take stuff. So go to sleep. Cool, you're asleep. Now I'm going to cut off your head. Moving on. And the werewolves were like, I never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you've never been powerless.
Before you beheaded the werewolf, did you say, I mean to cure you of your wickedness?
Girl, I will suffer you. I came close to chaining the character to a freaking to a radiator, but it was a girl player in game and I have decorum. So so yeah. But yeah, that was that kind of thing. But back to the dice and to the statistics. Oh man, the chat's going off. Let's check in on the chat.
Yeah, let's check in on the chat here. They got some stuff in here.
Yeah, let's see. Carthulu. I've played Portal. Teleportation is broken, but the cake is not a lie. It really was.
This next one. Huh? Not my proudest read, but the hero at the Neuroscope books could open portals, and when he was
on the vampire
world fighting, they opened a sun tunnel to Death Star the fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Like I said, I'm
opening a portal to where?
The sun.
The sun.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, again, broken. So broken.
I will
Let's.
admit, based on that, I will admit that there was a game I was again playing one of my infamous wizards, which again is why Ruthless is not allowed to play wizards in D&D campaigns. Um, they decided they did want to have vampires in the situation, and I turned every surface into a mirror because the DM did not see what I had planned coming, and then opened a portal to one of the suns. And
Oh, see, I
so I
thought you had
just
made friends with some freaking werewolves. Turned every portal into mirrors, and yeah, there you go. Look at that.
no, every single surface in the room became a mirror, and I just opened a portal overhead to the sun. And yeah, we just cooked a room of vampires.
Yeah. Now, to my GM's sadness, he did not know how good I was with matter and forces, and I'm like, dude, I have a degree in physics in the real world.
That's a very dangerous situation,
It
folks.
really was. It really was. But that's a talk for another day. I actually based that character off of Doctor Strangelove, but
Ooh,
he
okay.
did cause the end of the world, which was awesome. Mein Führer, I can rock. But back to dice statistics. Um,
Oh, get that last one before you do.
oh, from
Get that
Zan.
last comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never looked into the design documents for WAD, but my impression was that the games weren't really intended to be balanced slash compatible with one another. Actually, they were. However, they weren't designed to be balanced on the surface. Okay? And this is the next part of what I was gonna bring up today. I love how my chat is always in with segments. I'm pretty sure I'm a predictable writer. Anyway, see, that was your chance to be like, you're not original.
I mean, no, you are original. It's just that like you kind of have a natural flow point that I think a lot more writers need to have. And so, I'm not going to castigate you for actually having it and making yourself somebody who's easy to follow in this format because that's good for this format.
Now, according to writers like Kevin Smith, the only thing worse than a fat man weeping is a black man blushing. So, um, but when it comes down to those dice statistics, a lot of people talk about the B word, okay? And this is one of the things I wanted to bring up because
Okay.
on my days off, when I'm recording stuff for Happy With It, and when I'm editing or fighting my freaking software because I know that my stuff is registered, but it's saying it's not registered, I do listen to a lot of YouTube content. And the one thing I hear most from D&D content creators, 40K commentators, and a lot of my friends that are in game design is the B word, balance. Okay, and essentially, I think it's the Poor Hammer podcast talked about the best, like the balance that most gamers want when it comes to their competitive games. Pretty much turns whatever game you're playing to into a complicated game of rock paper scissors. Um,
Fair.
and here's the thing: when I look at balance, especially when it comes to the dice curse, the question is, what am I looking for really? Because to bring up Zan's point, with the games in the World of Darkness, especially the first edition of the World of Darkness, everything being off balance in between everything else. No, that's not the whole thing. Because, and this is what a good friend of mine said about War Machine, every faction has there are dirty tricks in the game, and every faction has their own. And the balance, especially with a lot of game design, comes down to more than straight up, can I roll better than you? Okay? It adds to a lot of the stuff. If you take a look at, say, a game like Warhammer 40K, if Games Workshop had a better game testing department, they would have caught that teleportation is a really powerful thing. Okay. But when you look at the straight up mechanics, this is what I need to damage you. My strength is the same as yours. I need a 4. My strength is higher than yours, so I'm bullying you. I need a 3. My strength is double yours. I need a 2. I only fail on 1. Okay. However, then there are the little flavor things that go into each little faction, like um, um, this thing has anti-aircraft or anti-vehicle. So if it's an anti-vehicle, I only need to roll this. Like if I'm attacking your tank, I only need to roll this to damage versus my strength and toughness. If I am a pointy-eared spaceship living on Elf, I know I'm a glass cannon. That's why I can teleport and GTFO. You know, the balance comes out in different areas of gameplay. So that means if the statistics are not in your favor, orcs, there's probably another trick or two within the rules of that faction that allows you to do something. Okay. I've been checking out Necrons a lot, and I noticed that they're slow. They're so slow. They're like, hey, we're going across a 6-foot board and we can move 4 inches at a time. Slow, slow, slow. And then they get shot to all get out. But then they regenerate.
Well, then you can be my
Huh?
my special boys, the Black Raging Blood Angels, and everything is dead in a 5-mile radius.
You know. Or or the ones that just got a massive nerf, the Gene Stealer cults, where it's like, oh, it's cool, we're a mob. Like, what? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, you took out 5 of my guys. Well, it looks like 5 more are coming in from around the corner. They didn't like how you did that to their bros. You know? And,
Would you like a cert?
huh?
Well, we wait. It's like would you like a cert while we wait for them? Because here they come.
Yeah, exactly. You know, now sometimes, and I'm sorry to tell you guys this, no matter what games that you're playing, there will always be a matchup where one side is boned. Okay? Most of the time, this comes down to the tactical skill of the player versus the design of the thing that they're playing. Okay? No, I'm not going to use 40K as an example because I don't want to turn this into a 40K channel. But I do want to talk about the first iteration of the Ranger in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Okay?
Good Lord. Yeah. Yes, please talk about this.
I honestly, as some people like 4th edition, I didn't have much of a problem with the Ranger at in 5th edition. I thought it was a fantastic support class. I'm cutting to you because
Look,
your animation
I like
is
4th
like,
edition.
ugh. Yeah.
I like 4th edition, but I'm also not crazy. Like there are people who have an unhealthy relationship to the changes between editions. And this is one of those situations where their unhealthy nature is part of the problem. I am on the same side as our wonderful host here on this particular issue, which is why I'm glad he is addressing it.
Okay. I figured you'd be in on this one when I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
man, you want in? But when you look at the Ranger from 5th edition, the first pressing, before they came out with the Gloomstalker class, the biggest complaint was that the Ranger didn't do anything that anyone else could do or couldn't do. You know, the fighter was a better archer. The druid was a better person in the middle of the woods. I get all that. Okay. However, when I looked at the thing on paper before I played one, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this except for the whole animal handling thing. Only in the sense of everything else in the game has a fantastic spin, and the Ranger is a very grounded character. So it's
Certainly.
like, it's literally putting the Punisher on the Avengers. It just didn't fit. You know, like what most people think of Hawkeye, and I vehemently disagree.
Hawkeye can shoot without looking the direction. They need to leave Hawkeye alone. I still think Green Arrow's a better archer, but I understand the argument.
Yeah. And I also think that Green Arrow's written better because he's a human amongst gods. That's like, hey, I might be rich, but not everybody else is. So can we cut the collateral damage down, please? These people live here, you know? So, and again, that is a good balance point. So a lot of the times when it comes down to balance. The balance in the game can tend to be found within gameplay, not just within dice statistics. Okay?
Certain.
And this is something that I want to move into the next segment about, which is play versus read. A lot of games are putting out new additions and new additions to what people have gotten used to, because their businesses, they got to make money. That's just how stuff goes. Like One Page Rules just put out a third edition, and I personally love it, but there's a lot of I'll get to you, Cthulhu. But there's a lot of comparisons, like what I like more, what I like less. And don't get me wrong, since I am kind of Pollyanna in my gaming, I do tend to want to take a look at, well, I tend to find positive things in practically everything I do. I'm like, oh, it got made. There must be a reason for that. And since it got made, I want to take a look at the thing that got made. So I want to take a look at the new rules for Grimdark Future 3.1. Okay? And I'll explain to you, Ruthless, the way that these abilities used to work, to show the different improvements. There haven't been many, but there have been some changes.
Okay.
So let me just turn this off. So let's take a look at the special abilities. This can be found on onepagerules.com because the rules are free because they want people to play their game. Armor piercing is still the same. Blast, still the same. Now, there's a new thing here called caster. Okay? Now, in the old game, there was what was called a psychic rating. And the mechanics went thusly. You have a psychic rating, 1, 2, or 3. Every psychic spell had a target number. So you would roll a die and add your psychic rating to the die roll. And if you hit it, cool. If you didn't, not cool. It was simple. It was elegant. It was across the thing. However, it was one attempt, one die roll, and at least one, if not two spells for every single faction had a really powerful attack spell that could be summed up to, I cast gun that shoots really hard, but it had a difficulty rating of 6, which means you would hit it on a 5 up. If you had Psychic 1, you would hit it on, like a 4 or a 5, which means it went off less than half the time. The new rule is Caster X, which means it is a sorcerer's or a magic user's stat, and it generates tokens. At the beginning of each round, you generate X amount of tokens, but you can't hold more than 6 at one time. Now, at any point before attacking, you may spend as many tokens as the spell's value trying to cast one or more spells, but you can only try casting a spell. You can only cast a specific spell once per turn from that character. So if you've got 3 sorcerers that can cast gun, or it can cast water gun, each character that casts water gun can only cast water gun once. However, if you've got 4 characters that can cast water guns, each of them can cast water gun, but any particular one can only try one time. Back down to it. Roll 1 die, and on a 4 up, the effect on the target in line of sight, resolve the effect on a target in line of sight. This model and other, okay, so let me get down to that. So that comes down to if a spell costs 2, you spend 2 and you roll a d4 or you roll a d6, and on a 4 up, it works. Okay? And you generate your rating. So if you have a rating of 2, then at the beginning of your turn, you get 2 more until you reach your limit of 6. Now, here comes the second part, and this is kind of cool. This model and other casters within 18 inches and line of sight can spend any number of tokens at the same time before rolling to give the caster a +1 or a -1 per token. Okay? So that means if a spell costs 2, you spend 2. But if you want to spend 3, you can spend 3, and now you have to roll a 3 up instead of a 4 up. But if you've got other magic slinging characters around you that have line of sight to you or the target, they can also throw mana into that. So if you think about it like Magic the Gathering, you have to spend X amount of mana to cast the card. However, the other players around the table can throw into your pot. So it's like, what you got on my 40, homie? You know? And the -1 is if your caster is trying to cast something and your opponent's caster can see the caster, they can spend that amount to try and stop you. So,
I gotta tell you,
yeah,
as an XCOM player, I would absolutely abuse this.
most people would. Most people,
Yeah.
most people would. Honestly, there is a pastiche of the Thousand Suns in this game. And I think this is really, really cool because you'll have one character that has a caster rating of like 3 and like 4 or 5 others that have a caster rating of 1. So when your big guy is like, I'm going to cast Fireball because I watch XP to level 3. The other casters that are with him are like, I'm going to help you. Yeah, I'm going to help you too. Yeah, I'm going to help you. Let's turn this from Warhammer 40K into Final Fantasy, and we will all help you throw Fireball, you know? And I think that's very cool. I think that's a
I'm also just thinking of like you hide the caster either behind people or cover, but so they still have line of sight to whatever target you want, and then just absolutely decimate people.
Absolutely.
Ooh, I'm a dangerous sort.
Absolutely. This opens up a whole new tactic of playing, and I think that's really cool. So I think that this is a major improvement. Now, a new thing that's been added has been counter. And this is strikes first with this weapon when charged. And the charging unit gets a -1 total to impact attacks per model with this rule. Now, this is big. This means if you charge that guy with that weapon, he's going to hit you when you get there. And you get to charge him with whatever you got left. I think that's very cool. Especially because in its wording, it is a weapon ability, not a player ability or a character ability, which means it's going to be very hard to have an army that has nothing but weapons with counter. They won't be available in your team build. And that's really big. But notice, okay, we're looking at +1s, -1s, and all that stuff. But if you take a look, let's take another look at the caster rule. Right here, on a 4+, so you have a 50-50 chance of hitting it. Okay. However, if you spend more of your sorcery points, you change those odds by 16.5% or 16.3% for each additional one that is spent. Okay, that's huge. All right, so I need to roll a 4, but the dice gods hate me, so I'll spend 5 on this. So let's see here. The spell costs 3. I'm rolling 5, so instead of rolling a 4, 3, 2, I need to roll 2 or better. You know, in other words, I pull off this spell if I don't roll a 1. All right, so
Yeah.
that's really big. Um, and that's a really really cool thing. Now, here is a rule that they changed. Um, yeah, this is one of my favorites. A lot of people don't like it because of its name, and we'll get to nomenclature a little bit later. But fearless has been changed. Before, fearless gave you, I believe, a +1 or a +2 on your morale checks from your leader. You have to make your quality save, and it gave you a bonus on your roll. Now, this one is when failing a morale test, try again, and you succeed on a 4+. So that means if you have a unit of figures that will be routed, i.e., they'll run away from the battlefield and you will lose that entire unit. If they fail their morale check, you get to roll again. Now, remember what I said earlier today, guys. One of the ways to get past your curse with the dice gods is to find a way to roll more dice or to roll your dice more often. Okay? So let's take a look at how this works in practice. All right? And this is a real thing in practice. All right? Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, my friend, you're with me on this?
Okay.
You have to make a leadership test. It's a 1 die roll, and you have to hit the quality of the leader of the unit. Let's say the leader has a quality of 3 up. All right?
Okay.
So you roll your dice. Oh, wait, he made a 5. Let me take care of this bonus here. There we go. All right, so we'll just keep rolling. Said roll. Aha, he rolled a 2. Okay, so the unit would normally be routed. But wait, they're fearless. Let me try again. However, instead of a 3+, now I need a 4 or higher. Nailed it. Okay?
Got it. Yeah.
So this is one of the things that makes that, in my opinion, is a really big improvement. They took it away from hopefully stacking the dice in your favor to another roll. Now, with some armies, your leader will have a quality of 5. So if you try and make a leadership test, you'll have to hit a 5. But if you fail that, and they have fearless for some god-awful reason, now you get another roll, and your chance to hit has gone from 33% to 50%. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing.
And it still leaves enough chance involved that you are having some tension about the dice roll.
Right. Now, one of the other rules that they did, and this is a big, I don't know if it's an improvement, but it's a new flavor. And we'll get to this in the next segment of when I say flavor. All right. Now, there was a rule called Furious, and I loved Furious. All right. Furious and Frenzy was my jam. It was when you charge, and your unit has Furious, each member of that unit gets an additional die to the attack that they're using with that weapon. So if you're playing inspired by but legally distinct from Tyranids, because these are definitely not Termagants, you have 10 of them, and they have Furious, and each one of those 10 has an up close claw attack of A2. So you're rolling 2 dice per member of the unit to charge something. But if they're furious, each of those guys gets an additional die. So now you've gone from 20 dice to hit to 30 dice to hit. That's the way it used to work. And that led to a lot of feel bad moments because Furious is pretty much in every swarm army, like orcs, bugs, gene stealers, that kind of thing. So now it has been hits from unmodified rolls of 6 are multiplied by 2, but only the original one goes. So they turned it from you automatically get another attack just because you're charging to exploding 6s, but they only explode once. So it's kind of a nerf, but it's also not terrible. I mean, what do you think of that kind of change in theory?
Hmm. Well, I think I mean, obviously, you're always looking for stuff that keeps the possibility for introducing more uh variance to the dice roll. So I kind of like that.
Yeah,
But I like it as a rule in general. It's kind of fun. I see what you mean.
in truth, I like exploding dice. That's just one of my favorite
Yeah.
things. I'm like, oh my god, I get to roll another one, yay! Um, so yeah, and only the original hit counts as a 6. Yeah, so that works. Um, and yeah, let's see here. Let me just look for a different one. Oh, this is a really big change in the rule, and I like this one a lot. Now, there was a rule in the last edition called poison, and poison was every time you hit, if you rolled a natural 6 on a hit, the number of hits, and there's no roll to damage in this game, so the number of hits got multiplied 2 or 3. So every 6 counted as 3 hits. And let's say you're playing something like space geckos that have poison blowguns, that lets you roll 20 dice on an attack. Each of those 6s count for 3 hits instead of just 1.
Hmm.
That was stupid. Again, a lot of fishing for 6s. They changed that rule to the target gets a -1 on their regeneration roll, which is big, and must re-roll unmodified defense rolls of 6. Now, I personally like this rule. I really do. I like that. I'm shooting you with a poison thing, and it's going to be really hard for you to defend against it instead of I'm doing more damage because it's poison. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They went a little more from the what into the how. But what do you think as a game player?
I don't know. I'm a little bit more split on this because I kind of like that poison has always been dealt with as a DOT, sorry, damage over time thing. Um, I think it like when you think about how poison interacts, more obviously, different poisons do different things. So they kind of standardized it by always making it sort of a either a damage over time that can be saved against or a a single damage that might remove some sort of protection. Um I I wonder if it's not like maybe there should be levels of poisoning, like poisoning versus like severe poisoning. Because I do think there should be. I like the idea that like regeneration is impacted immediately. That's cool. But I feel like maybe only affecting unmodified defense rolls is a little light.
Well, I can definitely see that now. Here is where we get into that balance thing that we talked about a little earlier. Okay.
Okay.
Um, the way that it's balanced is that there's a lot of factions in this game that only have a defense roll of 5 or 6. So it
Okay.
essentially comes down to I hit you with a poison thing. Mwahaha. Oh yeah, well I rolled a 6 for defense. Yeah, try again. What? Yeah, you gotta hit 5 or 6 again. Yeah, try again. You know, and that brings me like I think about it cinematically, and I see before when you were just guaranteed 2 more automatic hits, It felt more like an explosion. You get what I mean on that?
Right, right. Yeah.
Um, however, with this new poison thing, it's okay. No, I'm fine. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not that fine. Kind of like when you've been drinking too much and you decide to stand up. You know, that's kind of what I see. I see the rule playing out thematically and bringing the balance, especially when it comes to the armies like orcs and um, Imperial Guard that have defenses of 5 or 6. You know,
I
um,
would almost say if it affected either of five, like if it could affect both fives and sixes, like if on your defense roll, if you do hit 5 or 6, you have to re-roll and take the second result, or have some sort of effect to it. I would almost say that, like, but that's just me.
yeah. What you're saying is a really good point. A little complicated for the intention of the game that it's in,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
but
It's
yeah.
it's one page rule, so I don't want to make anything too complex because it kind of needs to stay, available to do the one page. But I'm not anti it.
Oh
It
yeah.
would take. I would have to play it a few times. I would have to play specifically in the situation where poisoning was involved to really get a feel for it, to see how I really feel about it in a playtest scenario. But
Aha.
reading it makes a lot of, like, general sense. I guess
Right.
the best way to put it.
And now you bring us to the segment that I've been trying to push you to, and that is when it comes down to the dice gods, guys. Um, People talk about being forsaken by the dice gods in 2 situations. One more than the other because this is 21st century America, okay? And most of the complaining about the dice gods tends to happen outside of playing the games. Because as the writer of One Page Rules, little Mr. Parham, I freaking love your mind, said very succinctly, people like playing simple games and they like talking about complicated ones. And
Yeah.
given how long I've been a mini war gamer and how many different role playing games that I've played over the course of my life, I can definitely say that I've played more 5th edition than I have Call of Cthulhu.
Mm.
um, I've played more 3rd edition than I played GURPS. Um, I definitely played more War Machine and One Page Rules than I did Warhammer or BattleTech. Okay? And what that does come down to saying is that when people talk about their curses from the dice gods, most of it will happen when they're reading rules, like this poison rule, for example. Um, my y'all know him in the chat as Mad Wookie. When I talk to him about this new rule, I can already hear him going, ah, because he's one of the people that feel that the dice gods have forsaken him, and he's like, I gotta make another freaking roll. Now he tends to play Grey Knights, so it's yeah, I only needed a 3 or 4. Yeah, you did, and you made it through. Cool. However, you got to re-roll those 6s. you know, and he'll be like, but I got a 6. Why do I have to re-roll it? Fortunately, he doesn't play anything with a defense roll of 6. But we will probably have a 2-hour debate over over him having to roll again because he feels that the dice gods have forsaken him. However, when it comes to getting past the fickle narrative nature of the dice gods, most of this stuff, most of these discussions, and back me up on this one, Xanathades, if you can, is mostly theoretical discussion, and it always, okay, not always, but more often than not, it goes differently at the table. Within gameplay, other stuff tends to balance things out, just like when you're reading rules that are written poorly on the page and then you actually play it in the game and you go, oh, that's what they meant. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, please, say something. Say something, my man.
Well, no, that's kind of the thing. Like, I don't think you can ever really get a feel for a rule in any system until you've had some time on a table with it, because so often we are dealing with like rules being written with a language that is just able to be generally applicable without too much not variance so much to say like too much need for explanation by the GM or by another player. It's why games that have increasingly ridiculously sized rule books tend to not be as popular, because once you start playing with all those rules, you realize how unwieldy they are. I'm looking at you, a certain cybernetic future game that ends in run. Um,
Hey, you better
there,
watch that talk, punk.
uh, sorry, Choom, I picked my side on this one. Oh, you're the times, old man. Oh, yes, folks. I treat Cyberpunk and Shadowrun as if Shadowrun is just a bunch of boomers doing in the same role as the Cyberpunk young kids. Millennials and boomers fighting all the way through tabletops. What do you know? Uh,
Yeah, I know. I mean, what are those guys ever gonna do? I mean, it's yeah. Oh, well, no.
the funny part is I play both, but it's just funny to be on the side. Um, but no, I think a lot of times that as we get into too much specificity with rules, you kind of lose the point and definitely lose the plot. And so it's good to play test stuff to really understand what the intent is. So for me, yeah, I kind of don't think there's any rule that can be understood by just reading it on the page. You really do have to see it in action, even if that's just you sitting. Especially for you GMs out there that are maybe getting ready for your first ever play as a GM, or want to GM and they're thinking about it. Even just sitting down with yourself and putting yourself in the scenarios where a rule you're having trouble with is difficult to understand, and just getting a chance to work through it in a real situation, just setting it up to where you do it like that can oftentimes help you understand it enough to either realize that just, hey, it was just worded awkwardly because of what it needs to do, or decide if you want to take it out for some reason or add something else in for some reason. But like that's kind of where that comes from. Is like play testing, both as player and as GM, is always necessary for that same reason.
All right. So let's check in on the chat for a hot minute.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, Hawkeye's least favorite phrase, or I could just summon the angels. So, just to let you guys in on a little bit of a private joke, there was a show called Mitchell and Webb Look, or That Mitchell and Webb Look, and they had a commentary on unbalanced superheroes called Angel Summoner and the BMX Bandit. And essentially it was an action superhero show, and and it would always come down to, okay, BMX Bandit, the drug dealers are loading their supply onto that boat. What do you think we should do? Well, I could ride my BMX down, and then I could jump the bridge, pop a wheelie, and distract them, and you could stop all the drugs. You know what? That's a great plan, BMX Bandit. Or I could just summon a horde of angels down to stop everything.
Oh,
You know. And yeah, so Cthulhu is essentially saying, it's like, Hawkeye, what should we do? Well, we've got to get to the top of that tower and stop Hydra from doing X, Y, and Z. So I can shoot an arrow, pop a wheelie, like, yeah, or we can have the God of Thunder call down a lightning bolt and hit the entire building. Well, yeah, I suppose we could do that too. Yeah. Or we can have the magic woman wave her hands a little bit and throw the entirety of that Hydra building into a different dimension. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
or of course, Hulk could just smash, as Carthulu just said.
Or we could just summon a horde of Norse gods, and
What
yeah.
are we
But
gonna do?
I've got an arrow that can insert a USB drive. you know.
Oh.
Um, yeah. So let's see here. Yeah, we got Zenithade saying a little bit disappointed in 5e Rangers can't take a horse as their animal companion like you could in 4e. That's true. Um,
I
and
always
again,
felt like they did that so we just didn't all end up like Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2 and just have like oh.
no, Wizards of the Coast knows their audience, and they didn't want every single horse that every ranger had named Brago or Shadowfax. Okay, that's just really what it would come
Oh,
down
you,
to.
you mean they don't want to name them Artax?
You wrong.
Why? Why am I wrong for saying that? I wonder why that's such a bad thing.
My animal companion is a horse named Artax. You just hate the other players, don't you?
Or Roach. Yes, or Roach. Roach would also be another.
It's like, really? Yeah. Well, I've got a dog companion and I have a daughter. No. If you know, you know. Let's see here. I guess you can get a miniature horse. Um, I love the exploding dice in Hackmaster. There was no limit to how many times you could explode. That's true. And there was the atomic D4. In Dead Zone from Mantic Games, we call that getting on the 8 train because you have exploding 8s and you just keep going. And I'm like, oh my god, you rolled another 8 and another 8 and another 8 all right, fine, he's dead. Okay, he's dead. um, let's see here. Yep. Oh, that was exactly the thick book I was imagining. Yeah, Cyberpunk and Shadowrun. I say this with love though. Shadowrun is one of my favorite games. Oh, the BMX Bandit. Oh, thanks for
And
the
then the
YouTube link,
to the BMX
Cthulhu.
Bandit. That's great.
Neon Arlecchino, OG kids on bikes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a great plan, Hawkeye. Or the Hulk could just smash. Yeah, and let's see here. Despite loving Batman, I feel the same way about most of his work in the Justice League, except Punching Guy. That was essential. Yeah, Punching Guy Gardner was essential in the Justice League. Um, or Roach. Yeah, yeah, and
To be fair,
yeah.
Batman's real purpose is having all the plans to kill all the rest of the Justice League should any of them go rogue.
See, I thought
That's
it was
that.
funding all the Justice League clubhouses with freaking shadow funds from Wayne Tech Industries
Well, no,
instead
no,
of
no.
building
He
schools and
just
paying off college debt.
he just has those. He's just lending them to them because he's on the team. He built all that stuff
You,
for his own purposes. It has nothing to do with the Justice League. He just happens to have. It's like y'all can use this. Do you want to use this? Sure. I
I
guess I can
think
let
it's
you
the
have
pointy ears that keeps him from being a Bond villain.
this. Or makes him a Bond villain that just doesn't end up going after heroes as often when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And bat lawyers. Yeah, bat lawyers.
I said the lawyers keeping them from all going to jail because they're all vigilantes.
And I still wait for that day where Lex Luthor goes against Batman and is like, you know what, Batman? I have tried many, many things to thwart the Justice League, and now I found your Achilles heel. You've been served. And Batman going, no, Mr. Fishy, no.
Well, but the problem is he can't ever serve Batman because you would have to stop Harvey Dent first, who's clearly always secretly taking care of Batman.
Oh my God, it's the Bat Turnies. I'm thinking that's the only thing that Adam West was missing.
Oh, that'd have been so much fun.
But no,
Oh,
he
that
couldn't
is
have had
rest in
bat
peace,
lawyers
Adam West.
because he kept bat shark repellent on him. So I guess he's prepared for that too.
We're not all sharks, just me. Other attorneys like other animals.
And let's see here. If he were a
I
Bond
just happen to be a
villain,
Pisces, so I also enjoy all water related stuff.
oh, hang on, I dropped the mouse. I can't switch scenes without the mouse.
I mean, you don't really technically have to switch scenes. They know what I look like at this point. Y'all like the delinquent.
Yes, we've got the bat turnies. Okay, I got the mouse. Let's see. Yeah, and if he were a Bond villain, he'd have an acrobatic young woman trained in combat and completely loyal to him that dresses like himself. Cute.
Cute,
Really
really
cute.
funny. Oh, and when one of them gets,
She wasn't his
paralyzed,
lawyer until she stopped dressing like him.
and when one of them gets old, he'll just find another one that's super young and oddly daughter-like for his, return to being the Dark Knight. I mean, that didn't happen.
Not gonna lie, never before did I want to be Batman. I miss my kid. Uh, um, so yeah, but talk
Mm.
to the people for a half a minute. I gotta grab something from the regular Wizard's Tower.
Sure. We'll actually start off with this comment that they dropped in with. But the real punchline is, didn't Marvel Ultimate show us Hawkeye was far more dangerous without the bow? So that's kind of always been the thing, Carthulu. Hawkeye's really more controlled with the bow because he has to channel all that rage through aim. Like when he doesn't have the bow, when he's Ronin, especially, uh, yeah, he's not really all well held together when you think about it. Yes, aim, not aim. But when you have to aim a bow, you have to be kind of calm and steady. Uh, at least in his case. And so it kind of tampers down the like unrepentant rage and anger that he tends to fight with without it. I kind of wonder if that was always the thing they wanted to do, and Stanley was just kind of anti letting Hawkeye be this like rage beast, because anytime an author allows him to like is allowed to like have him without the bow, they just send him on killing sprees. It's rather scary when you think about it, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Like,
Again, like Hawkeye, I honestly believe, and granted, I am an Ollie fan, but I'm a fan of his character, not his power set.
right.
But Hawkeye is dangerous in Marvel. He scares me in the same way angels frighten me. I always say to my friends who are like, "No, man, demons are scary." Blah blah blah. I'm like, one, you've never read the Book of Enoch. Second, you've never paid attention to the Book of Revelations. Third,
You have no idea
demons
what
might be
biblically
able to
accurate
do all
angels
of
look
these
like.
horrible things, but angels can do the same thing. And if they are doing those things, that means they have permission. That literally means you pissed off someone really, really big. you know,
Also, I would rather look at a demon than look at a biblically accurate angel in most cases.
well, demons tend to be cute, and angels have an appearance that will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's a Xerophil, in which case he'll borrow your cell phone and fix the crack in it, and that's kind of cool.
I'm
Um,
convinced at this point that really most people's descriptions of like Lovecraftian horrors just come from reading about what biblically accurate angels look like and dropping acid.
you know, I choose to believe that because our boy Ganja made it very clear. Yeah, I love your descriptions, but I know you're just describing black people. So, and
Oh.
I'm from the club that knows what he named his cat, and the fact that Dorothy Parker was like, "Dude, you gotta pull back on that
Oh, I don't
racism."
mean Lovecraft's description of things. I mean people who like to make Lovecraftian styled beings for their stories,
Uh
not
huh.
actual Lovecraft monsters, like just those kind. Like I'm convinced that they're not really reading Lovecraft. What they're doing is just reading about like biblically accurate angels and then dropping acid.
I get that. I definitely get that. And
Because
yeah,
for the record, F Lovecraft.
yeah, I definitely get that. But yeah, so I hope you guys are getting a lot out of the dice discussion here. Because what it comes down to is if you think that you are cursed by the dice gods, um chances are you're probably thinking about your dice rolls in a different manner, okay? And in in a way that isn't serving you. And it comes down to the thinking. Um, what I can say is when I put my orc army on the table, and when it comes to orc shooting, I don't put my heart in orc shooting things off the table. They only hit on fives or sixes, and they don't tend to have that many shots. However, when my orc army is on the board and I err on the side of awesome, meaning, oh, looks like I'm rubbish with this gun. Well, you're using it wrong, mate. You see, if you hold it the other way, then you can crump them in the mouth. I charge a lot with my orcs, and they hit on a 4-up and get more attacks. You know?
Makes sense.
And when I can push those dice in my favor, then I succeed more. However, I never go into a game looking to wipe my person off the board. We talked a lot about comic books today because we're nerds and that's what we do. And I want to read from the book of Joker. Okay.
This will be interesting.
In the book of Joker, it states, "Yea, as he smeared on his paint, he reflected upon the countless victories over Batman, because in his time of crisis, he changed his criteria for success, never leaving home without the intention on being a pain in the butt to the pointy-eared capitalist." Let's reflect on those words. You see, when the Joker leaves the house, he's not always about poisoning the water supply and killing everybody in the city. There'd be nobody to laugh at his joke. I said there'd be nobody to laugh at his joke. But since he goes out to have a good time and to commit himself to pleasure, and that pleasure being poking Batman a whole lot, if he loses teeth, he still poke Batman. When Batman thwarts his plan inevitably because the Joker understands character and plot immunity, he still got Batman out of the house. If he can look at Batman and say, "Batman, I hate you, why can't you say it back?" And Batman goes, I'm arching many people right now," the Joker still wins. So if you think that your dice have been cursed, that your dice have been looked at by the spirits of you losing a game, if you can commit to having fun, I said if you can laugh. What did I say?
If you can laugh.
I said, what did I say?
If you can laugh.
If you can laugh at your dice rolls, if you can change the criteria for success to take down that big heavy robot, to take over as many objectives as you can, or to pickpocket one of the members of the party even though you are a 3-fingered orc barbarian, or even just jack one of the orcs that are riding polar bears for their polar bear so that you can have an animal companion even though you have a charisma of 6 and no animal handling skills. When you can err on the side of awesome with your gameplay, you won't get tilted, not nearly as often.
Mm-hmm.
But understanding,
I saw that too.
Neon, you're missing a direction. It is family friendly as long as I do not include a direction. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted from this bit, if you understand what averages are, then you can set your expectation to average and not bank on a corner case, not bank on that 6. You know, one of the rules that I love from Warhammer 40K is Deadly Demise. I love that rule. Are you familiar with that rule, Ruthless?
Can't remember it. Go for it.
When you destroy a vehicle or a monster that has Deadly Demise, you roll a die, and on a d6, it explodes, doing damage to everyone within 3 inches.
I love it.
Now,
I love it.
yeah, I love it, love it, love it a lot. Okay? Love it a lot. However, if you build
Mm,
an army that's based on deadly demise, you can have fun if you love fishing for sixes. But if you're depending on that to win, and that's the only way that you can have fun, you're not going to have fun because you need to roll 16.7%.
mhm.
Okay? That's not high odds. Okay? Now,
That
if there's.
actually
Yeah?
that actually leads to kind of my final thought for you
Mm-hmm.
on this. Um, I am always a big on, especially as a player, I'm always big on party um composition, in tabletop because I play more tabletop role playing games than I do tabletop war games. And I always look to either fill it myself or to see if we have somebody who is more skill focused than they are combat focused for this reason. Because you're more likely to be in a scenario where skill proficiencies are important than very specific combat proficiencies because there's only so many things you're going to need to do in combat, and there's a ton more to do outside of combat and before combat and sneaking around as part of combat. And so for me, it's always important to have that. Like, just to use our Thursday game because it's easier to talk about that. Um, our skill proficiency person is usually our bard, Georgie. Um, but as a backup to Georgie, it's Deacon. And it helps in a lot of the combat scenarios where Georgie might be, busy along with our cleric taking care of heals and inspiration, that I'm able to do other things besides just hitting folks. People, despite the fact that Deacon Jones has this giant mech as his trump card for most of the time I'm just doing other stuff because like whether it's keeping people
Yeah,
up.
like yelling at Cedric.
Well, no, I don't. Well, that too, but that's because Cedric rolls legendarily bad in precisely the wrong situations. Um, but a lot of times it's keeping people or things up. It's using my character's repair skills, um, including repair flesh now, which is just sort of an extra quick heal in like dire circumstance kind of situation. A lot of that's important, and so it keeps us from having to worry about having what my buddy Rick used to affectionately called nuclear rounds, where everyone just hits perfectly on something to take it down quickly. We don't really have to worry about the war of attrition approach to battles because we know we can survive that. We have the right composition to do so. And if you look at average dice roll as what you really want to shoot for, like can you take down most things with an average dice roll? It makes it to where your composition as a group is much less afraid to take on more difficult situations because hey, it's difficult, but average wise, we're going to be generally okay. Like enough to get out of it if it goes bad, but enough to stay in the fight if it goes really good. And so for that, like it's kind of like having a basketball team that is just perfect in the mid range jumper and and post up game. You're going to get your 2 points. They might be spotty from a 3 point shot, but you're going to get your 2 points. It's like having a good running game in football. Same thing. I use the sports metaphors because hey, maybe some of y'all are out there sports fans, but that's kind of where it comes back to. It's the same thing in video games. Taking a character that has a really good melee weapon and is decent from range is better than having somebody just amazing from range, and then you find out every single enemy is going to rush you. It's just really important to have that balance, and balance means taking care of the average.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I did. Even though we talked about, Batman's lawyer. I gotta say, yeah, sorry guys, Neon Arlecchino won the best comment in the thing today. I mean, Zan was close with bat tourneys, but yeah. I want to thank you guys for showing up today. Our people over on YouTube, like, subscribe, share, do all the YouTube things. This episode is going up on Spotify. So if people missed it, you can get them to the link if you're subscribed to the Spotify. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, come on, guys. I'm trying to do this for a living. And thank you for showing up today, Ruthless. I know neither one of us are in top form, but that causes more funny.
Of course. Happy to be here as always.
Yeah, and where can they find you?
So you can find me all across social media as The Ruthless Wonder. That's THE Ruthless Wonder. That's TikTok, that's Facebook, that's Twitter. That's of course your other social media sites as well. But you can also find me in your Barnes and Noble, at your Amazon book section, in the online Barnes and Noble or Rakuten, with my new book, The Man Called Dragon, available in ebook, Kindle, and paperback format for now. Hardcover coming for Christmas, along with a very big surprise in the new year. I can say that it definitely is related to dice and a couple of the game systems we've talked about.
Awesome. And thank you for all that. Seriously, check out his book, A Man Called Dragon. And if you guys want to find me, all you got to do is pull up your keyboard and you can go to Twitter X, not to be confused with Malcolm, because we didn't land on the internet. The internet landed, never mind. Also Instagram and Gmail at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on the Clock app. All right, the Clock app at BIDPY. That is BidP. And if you're part of that wretched hive of scum and villainy known as Facebook, actually I gotta stop talking crap on Facebook now, because Mark Zuckerberg might be able to beat me in a fight if he's so deigned to come off of his ivory tower and notice that we're there, and know that I'm just making fun of it because I want a sponsorship. And if you actually sponsor it, I'll talk about how Facebook is really one of the best social media applications that there is out there. On Deckers on the Book. That is, you can join Deckers on the Book and, show us what you're building, talk to us about what you're playing, and all of that jazz. I want to give a major shout out to the people out there in NP City. Thank you for being there. And, again, guys, if you think you've got the dice curse and all that stuff, approach things from a different angle. I know when the dice ain't rolling in my favor, I tend to change the focus of what I want my team to do. So if I'm thinking I'm gonna wipe them off the board, oh no, I only hit on sixes, or haha, I've made a wizard that casts all of these spells for combat. Oh my god, I suck when it comes to picking a lock. Then I'll cast Fireball at the door. But either way, it's always gonna be fun. And once you change your criteria for success to something that you can achieve, it won't matter if the dice gods like you or hate you. But in the meantime, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, or your budget, you can just look those people dead in the windows of their soul and tell them to take that card and put it back in the deck. Xanathage, yes, that is. Johnny Juice, and yeah, I would love a big old cup of that, but only if I was playing with weighted dice. I'm Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, coming at you with not a Ruthless Wonder, but
The Ruthless Wonder.
Saying thank you guys, and we will see you next week on the dark side of the room.